the people that are, this is really aimed for a little bit, is your school board trustees. So I know we have some great trustees on here. And so some of this is going to be old hat to some of you, but it's important for me to just stress some stuff that can be misunderstandings. So your students in the state of Texas take the STAR test usually in March or April. So they're going to sit down for that 2-month period. It's kind of a stressful period for school systems because they're gonna start in August. They're gonna start their schools in August, and they're gonna work really, really hard. And then all of a sudden, in March or April, the STAR comes up. We're gonna be testing hundreds of thousands of students. So the students are gonna sit for that STAR test. Plus, we have last year's, not this year's, because we don't have who's graduated yet and what happened to them. We have last year's college, career, and military readiness data. Okay, and then we're also going to know about our graduation rates. So about this time of the year, that March through May time period, TEA is compiling all of this data, and they compile it and they actually give it to the school system in June. So in June or before, your school system knows exactly how your students did on the STAR. They also already long ago have the college, career, military readiness data. So they're compiling this data, and in June, it's given to your school system. So your school system has unlimited STAR data, just a crazy amount right now, already about the 2024 STAR. So TEA takes all this data and processes it. And then on August 15th, by statute, every single year, the Commissioner of Education is supposed to release A through F letter grades for every district and campus. So that's kind of the chain of events that is happening.
Kara, now, one comment on that slide.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I think it's one thing to note, if you are a new trustee or new in your role, sometimes we confuse, or it's confusing, STAR test results and our A through F accountability rating. Although they are interrelated, they're actually two different bodies of data. And so I know some people think, oh, well, we got our STAR results back and they were really good. So that automatically means I can expect an A rating come August. That may or may not be the case. Just keep in mind, if you're new to the system, that those are two different buckets of data that are very closely related, but they have different indicators and different things that trigger. And Carol will be getting into that with us a little bit later, but just understand those are two systems working parallel to each other, but different indicators and timelines.
Perfect. I really appreciate that comment. So what has been going on with the A through F lawsuits? It's been, and what's gone on with A through F in general? It's been quite fraught since it came out. This has not been an easy thing. So we really have not had A through F letter grades. Well, let me do this. Take just one moment and kind of scan through this slide. Okay. So very importantly, the only time A through F letter grades have come out for districts and campuses was in 2019. All right, that's the only time this system of A through F letter grades has successfully come out. Right after that, we go into COVID. And then in 22, what they did is they released district and campus grades if you got an A, B, or a C. But if you had a campus that was a D or an F, you were not rated. All right. And then last year they were blocked. A lot of questions about, well, what's the timeline for resolution? I get these questions all the time. Guys, it's really not clear. A lot of people thought this lawsuit was going to move a lot quicker than it has moved. It is very slow. It is kind of sitting at the Third Court of Appeals and, here, and it doesn't seem like a resolution is readily coming. So it's not clear when these grades are going to be released. All right, well, what happened this week is some school systems got together and they sued to block the STAR test that was just taken, just this, like I said, they just took the test in March or April. They used that test to calculate accountability and it was supposed to be released on August 15th. And another lawsuit came up. And so a judge has temporarily, at least temporarily, said, we're not going to put out this data. The next hearing on this will be August 26th. Again, these lawsuits are taking longer than was expected. And so it's not clear when things are going to be resolved. And I think a lot of people thought, oh, it'll be resolved in a year. Well, a year later for this lawsuit, we're still kind of in total, there's just not clarity on what's going to happen. I want to mention, what's going on in these lawsuits. The first lawsuit last year, again, it was right before August 15th. So around this time last year, the first lawsuit was filed. And basically what the school districts that were filing the lawsuit were saying is that we didn't have fair notice from TEA about how our A through F letter grades were going to be calculated. We should have had notice long ago. And TEA waited too long and kept changing the calculations. And so we don't think that's fair. We deserved fair notice. There are also questions about whether the STAR test was valid. And then there were also concerns that some school districts, even though they were improving, they were expected to get a lower letter grade. And the commissioner has been very clear that under the new accountability system, most school districts and campuses will receive a C. So if you had an A or a B before, there's a very good chance that your grade was going to go down to a C or even lower. So school districts got together and they filed a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is still sitting there, and it's not clear when things are going to be resolved. Now this year, the kids sat for the STAR test in March and April 2024. People were excited. They thought the letter grades might come up. Another lawsuit was filed to prevent this year's grades from coming out. And what the judge has done right now is temporarily stop the release of the grades. That doesn't mean the grades are going to be the same, not come out at all, but at least temporarily, the grades are not going to be released. And the questions or concerns that have been raised are the same as in this lawsuit. But in addition to that, there's been some concerns about the AI grading. So some computer systems were used to grade the STAR essays. There were concerns that the STAR wasn't verified by an independent third party, which is required by law. There were some changes to which students got to take which STAR tests that were special education. And there were also additional changes being made to the college, career, and military readiness components of the A through F system. So a judge temporarily said, this is not going out. The next hearing on this will be August 26, 2024. So I am an attorney, and so keep that in mind. I can give you tea leaves, but there's absolutely no guarantee that what I'm saying is true. So I might eat a lot of crow. But based on what has happened here, I do think that these grades are gonna be blocked, at least for several months. So I don't personally, after reading the lawsuit and looking at what happened last year, I think that there could be some significant delay before these grades come out. So we just don't know when they're going to come out. We don't know when this is going to be resolved. And one thing the school districts are even arguing is, even if the commissioner produced grades for either of these years, he would have to use calculations from 3 years ago. So that makes even calculating your grade under these various legal scenarios really difficult. There was a great question here. Why were the ratings expected to be lower? What Commissioner Morath had said is that when we came to a time when we wanted to look hard at our accountability system, look hard at our A through F system, and say, how many schools are getting an A or a B or a C, and what do you have to do to get an A or a B or a C? And the thought was that we want to average everybody to be a C. It's kind of like on that big old bell curve that we have in education, kind of the average performance should earn you a C. So they were recalibrating the system to essentially say that we want the majority of districts who are performing average to get a C, and to get a B or an A, you're going to have to perform better than other districts or improve your performance over time. Because of that change, a lot of school systems were expected to get a C. And let's say you had a C before, well, then maybe now you were going to get a D or an F in the new system. So a lot of school systems were upset about that, which is why they filed these lawsuits. Okay. A good question that just came up in here is, why do we need ratings anyway? And we can talk about that. That's an excellent question. Your school systems can estimate their A through F ratings, and many of them know what the ratings would have been last year had the system operated as anticipated. And I anticipate they also will know what the ratings would have been this year. But again, that data cannot be released publicly because the judge has enjoined it. Okay, so great question that came up. Is what should school boards do? We have had a situation where we have not had normal A through F letter grades for years. And the whole purpose behind the A through F letter grades was to help school systems understand how they were doing and to give them a fair and kind of transparent view into how they were doing compared to other school systems across the state. But we don't know what's going to happen, and it is very jammed up. And so we, have to really think about, what can a school board do in this situation, or a leadership team? Well, I want to back way up, and you probably remember my early slide that talked about the A through F letter system is really based on 3 things. There's only 3 things that go into it. So I know sometimes there's a lot of very complicated language, and we'll hear about domains and a lot of education jargon or education speak. I like to talk to you about it, but I just wanted to distill what's actually going on, because it's so important that people understand, where do my letter grades come from? In elementary school, the only input, the only data that goes into it is your student star data. Now, we're going to look at that star data several different ways. We're going to look at how many students pass the star, if they pass the star at approaching grade level, meeting grade level, mastering grade level, if how they're doing on the star grew, we're going to look at that. We are going to compare your schools, your elementary schools, to other schools with similar levels of poverty on the star. And we're going to say, hey, you guys look a lot the same. You have the same levels of poverty in your school system. Are one of you doing better than another? Probably the one that's doing better should get an A, and maybe the one that's not doing as well should get a C. So we're going to take that star data and we're going to use it, and we're going to think about, are our kids growing? Are our kids passing? How are you doing compared to other similar schools? And once we've looked at all of that, that's how we're going to determine your letter grade for elementary. Exact same thing for middle. It's just star cut a whole bunch of different ways. And really what the system is designed to do is say, if your children are doing well on the star, you will get a high letter grade in the Texas A through F accountability system. Point blank, that's all there is to it. If you want really good grades in the Texas accountability system, you have to have your kids doing really well on the STAR test. Now, in high school, we do have some different components. We have the STAR test. We still have a lot of 4 big STAR exams that are going to go on in high school. But what we are also going to look at is last year's college, career, and military readiness. So that means how many of my kids cross the stage, college, career, military ready, according to TEA. Very importantly, it has to be according to TEA. And then we're also going to look at our graduation rates. And that's the entire accountability system. So just want to totally demystify, that's all there really is to it. And I think a lot of times we put a lot of confusing language and confusing graphs and charts up there, but this is all that it really is, guys. John, I know you've probably been tracking a little bit the wonderful chat box, and also you may have something to contribute.
Yes, one question. Is the state using the meets category to determine the A through F rating? Or where is that cut point in student assessment to place them at the various levels?
Yes, so there are cut points, and I didn't understand the very first. Are we using the what? The mints?
The meets category.
Meats, okay.
Yes.
You get points if your students are growing on the STAR test. So, and that's great, because that means if you have kids that come in critically behind, as long as your school system is growing them from not passing the STAR test to approaching grade level, to meeting grade level, to mastering grade level, the more you grow your kids from wherever they are to the next level, the more points you get in the system. Now, why does the state really focuses on meets. You get points for kids approaching. You even get points if you grow kids from low approaching grade level to high approaching grade level. So if you move kids in any direction on the star toward approaching grade level, meeting grade level, mastering grade level, move them in any direction, you get points in the accountability system for that. Why does the state focus so much on meeting grade level? Because many school systems, and I just love you guys so much, focus on if their students are approaching grade level, because approaching grade level means you pass the star. But that is not where you should be focusing, and that is not where school boards should be focusing. Because if your students are only approaching grade level, if they're only approaching, you are probably going to get low grades in the A through F system, because we don't want kids just approaching grade level. We want them meeting or mastering grade level. And the A through F system is designed to encourage you to grow your students toward meeting and mastering. It is not enough just to get them approach, and it's not enough just to get them to pass the star. One thing that happens with boards a lot is that the school system's like, look how many kids we got to approach grade level. Well, approaching grade level still means that child's significantly behind, and that's not the goal of our system. We want grade level or above performance. John, did you have anything to add to that, or any more questions that came up?
Oh, I think that sums it up well. You know, that progress measure of wanting to see kids move forward, there again, there is weight in that, but it is fair to say that, you know, meets is where it meets is where it's at.
Meets is where it's at. We want kids meeting grade level or above. Okay, I want you to just take a moment and read this slide. I work with school systems all across the state, do a lot of coaching, and I really try to get boards to focus on what does your school system exist to do, and this is what your school system exists to do. So just take a moment to read and kind of internalize this slide. So I'm going to just unpack a couple concepts that I think are so important here. I mean, these are just the essential things that the board should be laser focused on when you're trying to think about, you know, what should I be doing and what is my mission? You want high quality, very well trained, very well coached teachers to be teaching the Texas essential knowledge and skills. That is what your school system is being paid to do. And these are being adopted. This is the state's standards. I call it the state's curriculum, but this is what your school system is supposed to be teaching. It's actually legally what you're supposed to be teaching. You're not even supposed to be teaching stuff that really doesn't align with the Texas essential knowledge and skills. These are adopted by the State Board of Education for every single classroom in this state of Texas. And it's to ensure we have really good standards in place and we have a lot of equity in the system so that all kids are being taught the same things. We want it to be at grade level. We do not want to be teaching at below grade level. There's a lot of research that TEA has out there, and that's this meets grade level. Are we meeting grade level? There's a lot of research out there from TEA that says many school systems are teaching way below grade level. And when kids just are learning way below grade level year after year after year, they never catch up. There's a lot of studies that say they don't catch up. And so what we really need to do is make sure that we have a really highly trained teacher teaching the knowledge and skills at grade level. And the whole point here, guys, is so your students can graduate college, career, or military ready. It is so easy in education and all the jargon and all the things that are thrown at you to kind of forget what we want. We want our kids to be able to leave with a family sustaining job or an opportunity to be successful. And so as long as you're focusing on, are they learning every year at grade level, then you're going to have them graduating college, career, military ready, which is the ultimate imperative of this entire system. Now, we measure if things are going well in our system using the STAR. We use the STAR, and we also use the college, career, military readiness indicators. Those are the way we measure it, and we measure it, and then we put the data together, and we give you an A through F letter rating. The only things, again, that are going in are the college, career, military readiness, the STAR, and graduations rates. So we're testing your kids. I know, and everybody knows, the STAR is an imperfect test, and there's a lot of dynamics to it, and I get that. But it's the only testing system that we have. And I'm telling you, the data indicates that if your students are doing well on the STAR, they are going to do pretty well on the SAT or ACT. If they are not doing well on the STAR, they are not going to do well on these tests. These tests are highly correlated. So whenever you're hearing, why is the STAR important? Why are we doing it? It's required by federal law, but it's giving us a barometer or an indicator of whether your school system is teaching the Texas essential knowledge and skills at grade level or growing kids toward grade level.
Kara, one thing on correlation, we do have a question in the chat about, are you familiar with any research or findings on correlation to industry-based certification exams and the STAR test?
That data is a little bit difficult to get at. I want to pin that question. That is an excellent question. Let's go back, or I'm gonna hit on that in a future slide. But that's an excellent question, because we're going to talk about we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into CCMR. Okay, I want you to think about, what are the repercussions for your school system of not doing well on the STAR test? You might not like the STAR test. Like I said, it's dynamic, but what are the actual things that happen to your school system if your students are not doing well on that test? So just take a minute and look at this slide. Okay. When your campuses in particular are getting low grades, when they get that D or F label or even that C label, it creates a lot of problems for your school system, right? Students leave. There's a lot of school options out there, and there may be a whole bunch more coming, guys, right? I mean, the legislature is I really believe it's going to happen, that there's going to be a pretty robust voucher or education savings account passed by the legislature. So there's going to be a lot of competition. Your students will leave your school system if it's not doing well. And that's really what we want, we want them to have some choices and options. We don't necessarily want to have students in school systems where they're not teaching the Texas essential knowledge and skills at grade level. This, though, causes tremendous funding loss. And every student is worth $10,000 to $12,000 to you. So when I try to talk to board of trustees, 10 students are worth $100,000. So just 10 students really start swinging your budget. Okay. Teacher recruitment and retention becomes much more difficult when you have those low letter grades. Teachers do not like working in DNF school systems. That's just common sense, right? But it also makes recruitment harder. So it can cause a lot of, ricochet effects. Obviously your community gets concerned. You're written up in the newspapers, and then people are saying, oh, well, that one campus has a D or F. So a particular campus can get a really bad stigma attached to it. One of the reasons the lawsuits, though, were filed, guys, these big lawsuits that we've been talking about, one of the reasons that the lawsuit was filed last year is because A through F ratings are so important, and businesses look at them, and out-of-state businesses look at them, and people who are moving to the community look at them. They wanted, one of the reasons the school systems wanted the grades blocked is because it literally impacts if business will come to your community, and it can cause a decline in real estate values, right? And then finally, the school board is going to be held accountable, and TEA may intervene. Right now, TEA has literally taken over 2 or 3 big school systems in the state of Texas. And so you want to be aware that eventually poor performance will lead to very severe intervention in your school system by the state of Texas. So when we're also like, I don't like the STAR test, I wish I could change it, it's a bad test. What I want to emphasize to you is, and this is when I talk to my boards, I go out and I talk to them, I'm like, I'm a huge football fan. I live right down the street from UT Austin. I watch football all the time. I think my daughter's going to go to Georgia University and it's going to break my heart. We're going to be big competitors. But at any rate, in football, we may wish the 50-yard line were in a different location. We may wish we got more points for a touchdown. We may wish we could change all the rules. You can't change the rules. The rules are the STAR and college, career, and military readiness dictate your A through F letter grade. So if your kids are not doing well on that test, you are not going to have good grades in the accountability system. And this is the kind of thing that can happen. Now, I know I have a few charters on the phone and I want to, or on the Zoom, and I want to just mention something specific for you guys. Charters in Texas are in the hardest accountability system in the United States, because if you get low grades 3 years in a row, TEA is mandated by law to shut you down, and they do shut down charters with some frequency. So you guys are in a, they call it the 3 strike system. You guys are in a very high stakes situation to make sure you don't get these low A through F grades.
Hey, Kara,
Okay.
one
Yes.
comment on the TEA interventions, and I know this is a primarily a instructional based call, but I want to tag on there, if you are struggling with A through F or your STAR results, and you are struggling with deficit budgeting, dwindling fund balances, decreasing revenues, that is a perfect storm for a TEA intervention. Because sometimes you can salvage one end of the ship over the other. Hey, we're struggling on STAR, but our finances are rock solid, or vice versa. Our academics are dead on, but we're struggling financially. But those are 2 of the biggest indicators that TEA considers when they look at these interventions and takeovers. So I just throw that out there, especially for you trustees on the call. If you're struggling at both ends of that spectrum, it's a serious situation.
Yeah, and it's kind of quick too. The laws have changed. TEA is they're more aggressive now than ever. We all know some big flagship school systems in this state that TEA is currently completely taken over and managing. Okay, just take a moment and read this slide. Now, again, guys, I know the STAR is it's like, oh, this is a difficult test, and many times you're getting negative feedback. Tell you a little secret. I like the STAR. I think we should know if our kids are learning or not, and kids are tested all the time. So I'm not so opposed to testing and getting data on kids. But let's say you have had some like negative feedback on it. I just want to tell you some things that are little known. First of all, Texas teachers help write every single STAR question. They come to Austin every summer and they sit in these big rooms and they work on writing STAR questions. And it has to be teachers in that grade and subject. So a 3rd grade teacher is going to write the questions for the 3rd grade test. So sometimes when I get a lot of pushback on the STAR, I'll say, are you saying Texas 3rd grade teachers can't write Texas test questions? Of course they can, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So really think about that. It's our teachers writing this test, or at least really facilitating and helping with it. Texas is the only state in the nation that releases every single STAR test question for every single school, and a lot of information about how many kids got that question right at the campus, district, and state level. And your school district can see student by student which question they got right or wrong. So they know exactly which questions your school was struggling with. Why that's so critically important is there's no black box. Everybody can look at every single STAR test question for years and exactly have the right answers and all the information about it. They can also look exactly how that question aligned to the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And then finally, before a question ends up on the actual test, it has already been field tested, what they call field testing, on thousands and thousands of students. So TEA has really meticulously created the test question. And then there's a lot of safeguards in place. So I'm just going to mention, for example, in the lawsuit that's going on right now, one of the things that's come up is, well, a lot of the questions were machine graded. But what TEA actually did is they had machines grade the questions and they also had humans grade the questions. And then they compared the two. And if they didn't have confidence that the machine was doing a good job, then they went back to the humans grading the questions. So there are a lot of safeguards in place. It's not and the state spends millions and millions of dollars releasing the test every year so that there's absolutely no black box. Everybody knows what's on the STAR and what is going to be tested. And then teachers know what the expectations are and what grade level instruction really looks like. So those are just some thoughts about it. I know it's a very controversial test.
Kara, how are those teachers chosen to help develop that test?
They apply, they can apply. And if you do not have teachers in your district doing it, I would highly recommend it. Now, I will say when they come, they write the questions and they can't go back to the district and tell the district, hey, these are the questions that are going to come. So they're kind of sworn to confidentiality. But there's big academies that go on every summer where teachers from all across the state. And I've actually talked to some teachers that have participated and they said it was one of the most rewarding and enlightening things they've done in their career is to help write the STAR test, because it really helps you understand, how things work around here. And it makes it a lot easier to understand that these questions are not, coming out of nowhere. They're being developed with our teachers in mind and with our curriculum in mind. Okay, so we talked about it. The STAR, if you want a good A through F letter grade, you got to get your STAR results up. You have no choice. The second big component in here is college, career, and military readiness. This is just for high schools, but those high schools are critically important and a lot's going on in them. And so I want to tell you. Now, college, career, military readiness is calculated a very specific way in Texas. And why I want to emphasize to you this is because I will hear all the time school leaders saying, well, we just need more mentorship programs, or we just need more this or more that. Texas doesn't give credit for just being mentorship programs. Texas doesn't give credit for a lot of things that you could do that you would think are college ready or really great things to do for kids. What the state of Texas is concerned about is that your student graduates. We're going to start right here, career. If your student wants to graduate with an industry-based certification, they have to take classes, difficult classes many times, leading to that certification, and they have to pass the certification exam. And not everything is certified. To be on the list of industry-based certifications that TEA will accept, you have to be a career that is very meaningful. They call it stackable. So it can be something where maybe you're an EMT and then you're going to go to nursing school. So they want it to be a career that or a certification you can build on. And they're really hoping that students graduate in industries that support their community and support the needs of the state of Texas. So what ends up being a qualifying certification program is very carefully monitored by TEA. You can also get level 1 or level 2 certifications. That's a great program. It's not used a lot in Texas, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. And then there's there's specific ways that we help our special education students to be able to graduate career ready. But those are the career ready paths in Texas. The college paths are right here. I want to emphasize to you, the high quality, or what I consider the high quality college paths, or if your student has an ACT, SAT, AP, or IB, like they've taken some tests that show that they are really performing at a high level, at a collegiate level. Our dream and your dream for your students, no matter where you are for the most part, should be that they can get an SAT or ACT score that allows them to get into the University of Texas. And the University of Texas, you have to have an ACT or SAT score. These tests are coming way back into style. So if you're hearing they're not important, they are. A lot of the schools are starting to emphasize them again. You want every one of your students to graduate with the skills and knowledge to get into a good four-year university. Is that going to happen for every student? Obviously not, but that's a highly ambitious goal. Having your students complete college courses is a wonderful thing for them to do, giving them exposure, lowering the cost of higher education, demonstrating to them that they can handle a college course load, and then of course getting them an associate degree. I'll tell you, one of the school systems that I work with in the Valley, I work with them a lot. I've been working with them for 5 years. 30% of their students graduate high school with an associate's degree. So these things can be done, and this is a very high quality way to get your kids college ready. When I'm going to say lower quality ways, but that a lot of your school systems are using right now, are to have your students take a senior prep course, not very rigorous, not totally college ready, but one way to get them there. And then there's also a specialized exam that's offered in Texas called the TSIA. So when I'm talking to my wonderful board of trustees, what I want to talk to them about is not only how many of your kids are graduating college ready or how many are graduating career ready, but is it in good ways? You know, are the certification programs your kids are graduating with supporting your local economy? Are a lot of your kids getting a good ACT or SAT score so that university options are available to them? Or are we kind of defaulting into some lower hanging fruit? Nothing wrong with this, but what are we aspiring to should be more of this kind of thing. And then of course, if they're enrolled in the wonderful military, one reason I bring that up though is because many times, guys, you can't get your kids in the military because you have to pass a rigorous exam and you also have to be physically capable. A lot of our Texas students are not able to do that right now. So somebody brought up, you know, does the STAR correlate to industry-based certification? Many of the industry-based certification exams are rigorous exams. Even you would think, you know, welding or plumbing might not be that rigorous. It's rigorous, guys. It's technical manuals. It is reading a lot of rules. It is being able to implement a lot of information. And so the better your students are doing on like the algebra STAR, the English STAR, their ability to read, their ability to do math, I do think that leads to much better performance on the industry-based certifications. Okay, in general, probably depends on the certification program. Obviously, some of these are less rigorous. So kind of probably that correlation is going to depend on it. And I've not seen a study, there probably exists, but I've not seen one that clearly correlates Texas STAR results to particular industry-based certifications.
Kara, a couple of questions on this slide. First, are Texas schools required to have students complete the military exam? Is that a requirement of all students to complete?
No,
that?
absolutely not. And none of this is a requirement for any of your students. These are the ways that you can get your kids college, career, military ready. But if you don't get, it's state of Texas, TEA wants 88% of your students, 88% to hit one of these levers.
Okay. The next question is there somewhere articulated where all of these points are delineated on the CCMR so they know how much are like basically are these worth different levels of points, you know, like low quality versus the high quality, or is
no, and that's why I'm just going to be honest with you guys, and this is just me, I'm a coach that studies this. A lot of school systems right now, if you go ask, they have a lot of kids doing this. Okay, so the kid hits the lever and they're college ready. But these are what I would say lower quality ways to be college ready. You know, we want your kids, I want for your kids, them to have access to some of these kinds of things. But this is where a lot of your schools are doing to get your kids college ready. So they're not graduating with an IBC. They're not graduating ready for four-year university, but they are college ready because one of these levers is being hit. All right, so just getting you guys to think about how are my kids graduating? What are they capable of doing? What have I made available to them? What dreams have I foreclosed to them by not really educating them very well? Okay, so what should you be doing right now as a school board? I really want you to dig in and set student outcome goals for STAR and CCRM. How are your kids doing on the STAR test? How are they graduating college, career, and military ready? You as a board need to set goals. Your school system needs to have goals, even if your board doesn't. You need to monitor if you are achieving your goals. rigorously monitoring, use that data. You need to hold your superintendent highly accountable for goal achievement. If the superintendent is not being supported and told what we care about is STAR and CCMR so that we get a high A through F letter grade, if they're not told that, not being accountable for it, then they might not do it, because school superintendents have a million hats to wear. And if the board's telling them a million different things, they're not going to know where to focus. You want to say, here's where we want focus. We want better results in these areas. Engage your community. Start talking to them about what are the goals for the system. What are we trying to do? The boards that I work with go out and host community meetings, and you would not believe the feedback that comes from those meetings, from the community to the board on things that they are seeing. At one of the community meetings I was just at, as an example, some of the parents said, did you know there's substitutes in this school almost every single day? That goes back to, do we have a high quality, well-supported teacher every single day in that classroom? When you are allocating your budget and resources, you are making sure it is being allocated toward STAR and CCMR performance. Number one thing, are we acquiring and retaining high quality, highly trained teachers that can teach the Texas essential knowledge and skills at the level of rigor for the STAR, at that grade level rigor? And then really thinking about, are there efforts you can take from the boardroom to the superintendent, all the way down to the individual and teacher and students, so that everything's aligned? Like I tell my school systems, are you aligning all of your plans? You have to do all these SIPs and improvement plans. Are they all aligned to you really achieving better results here so that you get high grades in the accountability system? Okay, a lot of times it's like, there's so much out there. And Kara, you're saying improve STAR results. I get it. We need to improve STAR results. Well, how do we do it? What metrics should we look at as a board? And I'm just going to tell you, my focus is always on these metrics. I'm just every bit of research there. This is indisputable. If your students are not reading and doing math well out of third grade, they will not probably do well the rest of their academic career. Those first 5 years from pre-K to third grade are critical. And that's why your board is required by the state to adopt goals and monitor third grade. But I would also monitor what's happening out of fifth grade as my kids are transitioning from elementary to middle. I would be watching the middle of middle school. Middle school is so tough and kids can derail in middle school and systems cannot be working well. So I say, what's happening in seventh grade? But where I really like to pay a lot of attention is what's going on in algebra, or what's going on the algebra STAR or on the English STAR. Those two tests, algebra and English. If your students are not doing well on the algebra STAR and the English STAR, they're not going to do well on the ACT or SAT. There's a very strong correlation. You just basically stand no chance. So another big predictor of health of a school system and our kids' learning is algebra and English 1. And then again, how many of my kids are graduating college, career, military ready? And how are they graduating? What levers are we hitting? What are the quality of the options that we're offering for our students in our community? Now, I'm going to have you guys put in the chat. I want you to just take a moment, because we get so much as a board of complicated education data, and we cannot often understand what is happening in our school system. So I just told you that one very predictive test, very predictive of a lot of things, is how your students are doing in algebra. This is the report that my boards that I work with are required to give to the board. I want you to take a moment and just look at it. And then I want you to answer in the chat. Is this monitoring report easy to read for school board members? Why or why not? Why is this a good report or not for a school board member who's trying to understand what is going on with algebra? Okay, so I've gotten a little bit of feedback here that this isn't that easy to read. And I'm finding that really interesting and great. So what I'm going to tell you guys is that I continuously try to refine reports for boards so that they are comprehensible to them. Board members are not educators. So can we make this in a comprehensible chart for school boards? The thing that I really like about this is that we have a trend line. You can look at this and immediately see the actual student results were better than the board. And that is the main thing. And we can see a trend where students going up or down over time. This is, believe it or not, because we've gotten some negative feedback here on it, this is one of the most simplistic charts that I've been able to come up with, but I'm always trying to refine it and say, what can we do to make it easy? My point here, guys, is that school board members should understand how are our students doing on algebra. It should be a very easy chart. It should not be a guessing game. It should not be filled with a bunch of jargon that school board members and everybody doesn't understand. And so the main thing here is, do we have a trend? Are we doing better or worse than we expected? What are we going to do about it? I'm also going to mention that this is in green. So my boards are trained that whenever they see green, it means we're a go. We exceeded expectations. We did better than we were expecting. But if this chart is in yellow or it's in red, we know we have problems. And so they don't even have to look at any data. They can just look at algebra. Is this green, yellow, or red? And they immediately know, did we do well on the algebra test this year? All right. Whatever tool you're using to try to understand your data, it must be the board must be comfortable with it. And it must be something that the board can utilize and understand to hold the school system accountable. All right. So what am I looking for when I am building my charts for my board? I want them to be visual, simple charts. I want easy trend lines so that we can understand if we did better or worse than last year. I want absolutely no education jargon. And I really want to understand what was the school board's goal and how did you do? So we're comparing ourselves to a goal, because sometimes we're told, well, only 45% of our students met grade level on algebra. That's terrible. Well, my question is it terrible? Because if the goal was really only 43%, if you hit 45, you actually exceeded what your school system thought was possible for you. Right? So just some things to think about as you're trying to monitor. You have all this STAR data. So any board member, anybody on here could start putting together reports like this or something that works for your school system and showing them to your board so that your board actually understands what happened in 2024. Was it better or worse than last year? And again, what happened on these key metrics in 2024? Show me some charts. Color code them green, yellow, red, so that I understand where we are in very simple terms. All right. With that, our final thing was to leave you with what should you do? And I know that John's going to drop a also some talking points that boards can use. You don't know what your A through F accountability grades are, guys. And I'm telling you, based on the current situation, I don't know if you're going to know for a while. So instead of relying on that as a barometer, and even when those grades come out, even if they were out, nothing about this presentation would change. Get down and dirty. What's going on these key metrics on the STAR test? You know, what's happening here? You can say, we are focused on our college, career, and military readiness. How are our students graduating? Are they graduating with an industry-based certification? Are they graduating with an ACT that allows them to attend the University of Texas? We are focused on improving student results. We're not just focused on getting kids to approach grade level. We want them meeting grade level. We want them mastering grade level. We are on a journey of improvement year over year. We want our results going up year over year. And then, you know, the other thing, and we talked about it, your focus has to be on your students learning the Texas curriculum, the TEKS, every single day with a highly supported teacher at grade level. That should be the focus of your job as your school board members. All right. I'm gonna wrap up with our little sales plug. I'm very passionate about this. Absolutely love working with boards and school systems on strategic planning, making sure all these things are happening. So if you're worried about your D or F letter grades, or you're a board member or a superintendent that's like, I need to make my data easy for my school system, or I need to improve our letter grade, what are some ways that I can go about that? Love to work with you. Many of your boards, you're required to get your team of 8, ISO, all these other trainings. Love to provide those trainings, and I really tailor them to your school system and what you need. Right now, if you're interested, just contact us through September 20th. TEA is offering a grant to pay for a coach like me to come and work with you and help you achieve what you want as a school board and a school system. I also just do a ton of, coaching on all of this stuff and love to work with you. And then John, I know you wanted to hit on a couple of the other great services that we have.
Yeah, there was one question in our chat that I want to put out there for the record, Kara, for you to address. And that's the implication on, we have these litigated A through F ratings. What is the implication if, let's say those ratings drop in both years? What is that implication for a charter school if those ratings are in fact low? And it may not hit let's say they hit a year from now, and it lands that, oh my goodness, my charter school just got 3 negative ratings in a row. What is the implication, Kara?
That's a very serious concern. And if I were you and I were with my charter school, I would immediately reach out if you have any concern about that with all. And I work with a lot of ISDs, and I also work with a lot of charter schools. Call TEA and say, I'm worried. I think I would have got a D or an F, or maybe you would have got a D or F because you can calculate it. Don't sit here right now and say, I don't know. I'm just going to wait and see how these lawsuits settle up. I think what you need to do is go ahead and contact your TEA liaison for your charter school and start that conversation and try to hear from them what they are thinking. I am not aware that they have put out like a hard information, in part because nobody knows after these lawsuits how the grades are even going to be calculated. So I don't know that TEA can totally respond